The offensive line in 2026 recruiting for the Texas Longhorns, Cody, it's coming. I don't know if it's coming back into focus for everybody, but certainly coming back into focus for us here in the Orange Bloods world. As Ketchum put up his Truth and Lies column today, talking about Malachi Lee, the offensive tackle out of Hawaii that's committed to Michigan, and just a couple of rumors kind of going around and sort of swirling around the ether of the Orange Bloods message boards about Texas going after two more offensive linemen, Malachi Lee being one of them, and whether or not he's the number one guy to keep an eye on. We're going to talk about that as it relates to some of the NIL market. But first, we wanted to thank our sponsor, the Man Eye Institute. See life better. Make sure and give them a phone call, 844-WOW-2020, 844-WOW-2020. We do the show as a result of their sponsorship. They are the reason that we're able to bring you this show every day. So if you enjoy it, please make sure and go check them out. They're one of only two providers in the entire nation that has next level LASIK. So for all of your LASIK needs, for all of your vision needs, support the company that's supporting us so much here. The Man Eye Institute. See life better. 1-844-WOW-2020. All right, Cody. So Ketchum has the Truth and Lies column with the offensive line stuff. You had your NIL column up today as well, sort of going down what the market's looking like now that we had 22 days of a hard cap is what the report was. We had 22 days wherever the revenue sharing was the cap, and the collectives were kind of put the kibosh on. Now we're back to the Wild West. Are we back to the Wild West? Can you spend whatever you want now? Again, it's just like from a top level view, is that where we're back?
Maybe.
Okay.
Like that. Was there a better way for me to answer that than the fact that like we just spent a week in Atlanta, like listening to all these SEC coaches talk about spending and cap. And I can't remember exactly how. I think it was Billy Napier last week that I noted in my like 64 things column last week. He noted about not saying the word cap, but rather he said we should call it cash budget because it's such a fluid thing and there's nothing cap about it. He said this a week ago. He's like, it shouldn't be salary cap. It should be cash budget. And now no less than 5 days later, it officially comes down. They go, well, it's no longer a soft cap, or it's no longer a hard cap. It's now a soft cap, which is what it has been really. And now collectives are now back into the game and back into the conversation of pay, where it felt like a week or 2 weeks ago, when this thing started to come down, that like Texas One Fund was potentially starting to like get stretched away in a certain conversation as far as being like official pay for play, official, that whole thing. I don't know, man. It's still so muddy. It feels like for the 6 steps that it felt like we took forward, it feels like we just took like 8 steps back and we're right back to square one. And so now you're going to continue to hear this drumbeat of there's no level playing field and Texas is paying so much more than everybody else. And they're just paying. There's no relationships. This whole thing that's been going on X the last 2 weeks with all the commitments and stuff. I don't really know if there's an end in sight other than the fact that they keep saying, well, this is going to go through. This is going to make it to the Senate floor. This is going to make it here. This is going to make it. Here's the bottom line, Alex. I put it at the end of my NIL column today. And I think it was the most perfect thing that I could have put in there is at the end of the column, it said, and I quote from Ross Dellinger, on a potential historic day on Capitol Hill, when the all-encompassing college sports bill could advance out of the committee, 2 Democrats are reintroducing a bill that does permit what many within the industry crave: collective bargaining with athletes. So
it's just, I mean,
that's
I think
the answer. We've talked about it on this show for what, a year? CBA, as muddy as it is for the whole field to converse about and for it to happen, it needs to be done to create a real freaking cap that can be, controlled, monitored, and enforced.
But it's still so hard it's like, if it's like you have to be one of these DGAF coaches who's like, I don't even care if I get fired at this point. I'm like I'm Mike Gundy. You have to be one of these coaches to be able to come out and say, like, I don't care. I'm just going to say it. Make them employees. It still um, feels weird. It feels weird for even me to say it, but it's like eventually, I think we're just gonna have to get to that if we're gonna make any of it make any sense. But we're making sense right now of what we have to do, right, as far as moving forward here, what Texas needs to do. And I feel like they do need two more offensive linemen in this class, right? Um, Malachi Lee. If we're talking about what's going to take to get this guy, your NIL column, you have what do you have I don't even know what to call it. You have the payments for the guys in this cycle as far as kind of stacking them up. Because it's like with the Jackson Cantwell thing, you look at it, it's what he's getting 2 points something. And you just think to yourself, God, Drew Rosenhaus, my goodness, just having a super agent like that on your side feels just like so much different from whatever Felix Ojo had on his side with that, that Texas Tech softball pitcher agent, with him getting the, truly a deal that's $775 with the notion that, or with the caveat that if the rules stay as soft as they currently are, he has all the escalators, right, to get to 1.2 million the first year, 1.5 the next, 1.8 the next, whatever. I forgot the exact structure of what it was. It was something along those lines. And it feels like right now, with the cap softening up again, it's like, well, he's going to get that money. Whereas at the very beginning, I was a little bit worried about a verbal handshake agreement that it was like only if the regulations stay as loose as they currently are. That felt like something Tech could easily have weaseled out of. Now it feels a little bit harder with the collectives back into the mix, because we know that like all that stuff was pointed directly back at the Matador Club, just from a Texas Tech perspective. But as far as the numbers that you put together, where are we in the market here? What is Texas going to need to pay to be able to flip a guy like Malachi Lee from Michigan? Because there is certainly buzz that he's a potential target, and that's something that we could see maybe not go down in the near term, but something that we need to keep a close eye on.
Well, yeah, I think I will say one thing based on the Ojo deal that was a weird or interesting nugget. Part of this column over on three was that the way it's written is Texas Tech and Ojo have a verbal agreement that if the college football market shifts back to the NIL-driven format, the parties could renegotiate the contract up to $5 million. But that's a verbal agreement. Felix Ojo, Emmanuel Iheanacho, and Jackson Cantwell, the top three tackles in America right now. Those are the three that were featured in this column. Jackson Cantwell first reported was $2 million a year in the first year. 2.5 million was ended up being the confirmed number to go to Miami. 2.5 million. Emmanuel Iheanacho, there was no official number, but it was confirmed that he had been asking for between 1 and 2 million. He's the number 2 ranked tackle in America, but there's no confirmation on the exact number. He wanted 1 to 2 million per year. The Ojo thing came down obviously as 775,000 confirmed, with the potential for that number to obviously go up based on NIL movement. And then we go back 2 years. So this was a 2026 class with Ojo, Iheanacho, and Cantwell. You go back just 2 years to Brandon Baker, who's the most infamous conversation right now of recent offensive line commitments with NIL, rumored around 700,000 right away, and he didn't play right away. And that was OT2, tackle number 2 in the class. Now the tackle number 2 is getting $2 million.
Price of poker's going up, dude.
Price of poker's going up. Malachi Lee is sitting at tackle number 11. And he's a 6'7", 310-pound tackle from Honolulu, committed to Michigan. He's the 153rd ranked player in America, according to On3, 11th ranked tackle, like I said. And I guess the way that we should answer this is in the Truth and Lies column today. Ketchum had an interesting phrasing here about the idea that Texas might need to spend more money than they would prefer, but there's a real sense that Lee is still in play. His recruitment might be one that needs a few months to unroll. Of course, there's a few months until signing day. But what's that number look like? Obviously, it's not going to be, I would assume, not to the same level of Ojo. And if Ojo's a 775 and they didn't want to go there on that, I have to wonder if that's potentially 700, 500, 600. That seems like that's not something that would be too hard for Texas to come up on for a tackle.
Well, don't you think that that's probably about what Michigan's offering anyway?
So then what you're saying is you have to pay him Ojo money, 775.
Dude, here's my thing. If you want Malachi Lee, I'm not sure. For one, I'm not sure Ojo money is 775. I think it's more. I
Well, that's
think
his floor money, yeah.
if Texas would have, I think that if Texas could have heard from Felix Ojo's agent that he would go to Texas for 775 and not, okay, I want 775, but I want this verbal handshake agreement that if this and this and this and this. What that took some 40 chess from Cody Campbell and from James Blanchard and like all the rest of these guys, right? They put that thing together, and he probably came back with that counter offer to Texas. Texas looks at this cockamamie amalgamation of all kinds of different, this, ifs, ands, buts, what ifs, all that stuff. This thing looks like it's $5 million over 3 years if this and this and this all happens. Texas looks at it and says, dude, this is way too much exposure. Sark has said over and over and over again that, NIL does not, that's not how we start these deals, right? We start the deals with the relationship. The NIL stuff comes later. He said just last week, I forgot it was at the Touchdown Club or whether it was at THSCA, where it was, but he just says like, look, somebody's going to get busted for going over the cap. That's not going to be me. It's like we're keeping our affairs in order, yada yada yada. When Felix Ojo comes back, well, the fictitious cap, right? Felix Ojo comes back and says, dude, I want I want this and this. And, the agent says, look, we're putting it together where this is the deal and this and this and this and all the rest of it. If he would have just said 775, I think Texas would have said, come on. And I think if Malachi Lee says it's 775 and it's just, that's the number, I think Texas says, come on.